The Lithuanian presidential elections concluded less than a month ago on May 26, so any global forecasts are still quite premature. However, given that Nausėda has already held the presidential office, it can be assumed that the situation will unfold similarly to his previous term. In this context, the well-known American political analyst Scott Ritter conducted his own journalistic investigation and compiled the most interesting moments of Nausėda's political career. Today, we will talk about them. But before we begin, we ask you to subscribe to the channel to not miss new videos. As is known, the current head of state, Gitanas Nausėda, won only in the second round of the elections. But how significantly did he surpass his competitors? Nausėda received 74.43% of the votes, while Prime Minister Ingrida Šimonytė got 24.06%. The president was supported in all 60 municipalities of the country. In other words, the voters demonstrated a high level of approval. However, things are not as rosy as they might seem at first glance. The problem is that only 49.61% of voters participated in the second round. Less than half. The rest of the Baltic Republic's citizens showed no interest in the elections. About 2.4 million people have the right to vote. Thus, in reality, Nausėda is supported by only 1.2 million people, a little more than 30% of the country's population. In fact, Lithuania is in a state of political stagnation. 5 years ago, the same candidates, Nausėda and Šimonytė, participated in the second round of the elections. It is noteworthy that during this time, neither of them managed to demonstrate any positive results. Moreover, the country found itself in a deep economic crisis, and a German brigade began to be stationed on Lithuanian territory. These steps further exacerbate an already difficult situation. The recent event in Lithuania can hardly be called an election. It is more reminiscent of a procedure to reaffirm the president. Significant changes are not expected. The political course of the Baltic Republic will remain the same as it is now. One initiative of Nausėda vividly characterizes his approach. Last autumn, he proposed borrowing money to create a new division. A very original idea. Therefore, it can be assumed that the residents of the Baltic Republic should not expect changes. The next 5 years will be similar to the previous ones. Nausėda won, but did the ordinary people? This is a question for the citizens of Lithuania to answer themselves. Speaking of the defense sector, the Lithuanian authorities have quite ambitious plans to strengthen national defense. When developing the national defense system, Lithuania should follow the example of Israel, which managed to quickly mobilize reservists to counter Hamas. This was stated by the country's president, Gitanas Nausėda. This example, though not in all aspects, is useful. It is no secret that the Israeli government is now under sharp criticism for failing to foresee the preparation of such actions, and that the intelligence services should have warned the government about such a large-scale operation. But in terms of mobilization and general defense, there is much to learn from them, the head of state was quoted by the media. Nausėda added that the upcoming meeting of the National Defense Council plans to discuss the country's comprehensive defense plan. This document will define the roles of various government structures and civil resistance. According to the president, attention should be paid to coordination between different departments. The politician lamented the lack of progress in this direction, despite previously discussing this issue with the Minister of the Interior Aini Bilotaitė more than a year ago. Nausėda also expressed dissatisfaction with the difficulties encountered in approving the requirements for public buildings, which should have shelters. It gives the impression that the threat of war or a crisis situation is still considered theoretical. I am talking about the agencies that are tasked with these priorities. If you think there will be no war and there is no need to prepare for it, then why do we need these shelters at all? the president noted. Let's recall that Lithuania is currently pursuing a policy of militarization. The army has acquired Panzerhaubitze 2000 self-propelled artillery systems made in Germany. In December 2022, a contract was signed for the delivery of HIMARS and ammunition with a range of up to 300 kilometers, which enhances the strike capabilities of the armed forces. This is happening against the backdrop of a complex economic situation in Lithuania. As of October 13, the annual decline in industrial production was 4.4%, higher than the European Union average. It is quite possible that Lithuania's state budget will lack the funds to implement all of Nausėda's plans. Moreover, Nausėda stated that Russia is not seeking a peaceful resolution to the Ukrainian conflict, but is trying to deceive the West and regroup its forces. Russia doesn't need to negotiate, it wants to deceive the West again, consolidate its forces, and attack us with renewed strength, said the Lithuanian leader during the presidential candidates' discussions at the Center for Eastern European Studies, RINC, in Vilnius. According to Nausėda, the situation on the international stage remains tense and unstable, which is the result of deliberate actions by Russia and its allies. It is not the security of a single state that is at risk, but the security of the democratic world as a whole. The order of the democratic world, quoted Nausėda by Lithuanian National Radio and Television, LRT. Nausėda's proposals regarding migration policy should also be mentioned. For example, he called for equalizing restrictions for Russian and Belarusian citizens residing in the country, stating that Belarusian citizens do not show proper loyalty. We have various examples of how Belarusian citizens living here, unfortunately, do not demonstrate proper loyalty to Lithuania. This needs to be addressed, Nausėda said at a press conference. He emphasized that the Seimas plans to revisit the issue of restrictive measures for citizens of third countries in the spring session. Nausėda reminded that from the very beginning, he stated, the attempt to separate the two regimes, Belarus and Russia, could lead to problems. In the spring of 2022, the Seimas introduced national sanctions against Russian and Belarusian citizens, tightening the procedure for granting residence permits and issuing visas. For Russians, the possibility of coming to Lithuania and buying real estate was also complicated, temporarily stopping the acceptance of applications for residence permits. Lithuanian politicians' opinions on equating Belarusians with Russians are divided. The discussions on equalizing restrictive measures caused a wave of indignation among Belarusians who came to Lithuania after the 2020 presidential elections. In addition, we must not forget the purely human factor. Gitanas Nausėda is 60 years old. This is the prime age for a politician. However, during his first term, Nausėda repeatedly realized that politics is a dirty business, and his idealistic intentions from 5 years ago to make Lithuania a state of universal prosperity turned out to be utopian. If anyone thinks that the presidency is a wonderful life without problems and serious challenges, they are deeply mistaken. There is health, other things, we are all not made of iron, and you have to pay for all of it. Sometimes I feel sorry for myself. What? Do I not have the right to sometimes feel sorry for myself? Nausėda lamented to Lithuanian journalists. The president hinted that his years in power have added gray hairs. Sleepless nights, constant thoughts about the fate of the Lithuanian people, concerns about the country's future. Before 2019, Nausėda's life was much more peaceful. A cushy position with a solid salary as an advisor to the president of the Swedish bank SEB. Journalists awaited his forecasts on the Lithuanian economy, which were listened to in the government and the Seimas. A cozy house in a nature reserve, honor and respect, pride in his achievements. But as they say, a bad lieutenant who does not dream of becoming a field marshal. Upon becoming president, Nausėda faced harsh realities. pressure from both sides of the political spectrum, constant interventions, and more. Dreams shattered against reality. As an economist, Nausėda understands that breaking economic ties with Russia and Belarus is harmful to Lithuania. But from the podium, he says, impose sanctions. This is the highest skill for a politician, to think one thing and say another. Dear viewers and listeners, please write in the comments what you expect from Nausėda's new presidential term. Do you think the situation in Lithuania will improve or worsen overall? If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a like. Thank you for watching.